moving on to the top Sportsman final, it's Charles Carpenter in the near lane in a 55 Chevy against Tommy Mooney.
Well, he's had a better ET than Mooney in some of the runs leading up to the finals here. Let's see how this 55 Chevy does against the better Mooney.
Looks like Mooney may have the win here. They cross the line, and yes, Tommy Mooney wins the top Sportsman division with a 157.6. Some headlines, however, have come from the Sportsman division this weekend. For more on that story, let's go to our pit reporter for the afternoon, Brett Kepner.
While the nitro-burning pro dragsters have brought a lot of excitement to the 1987 IHRA season opener, there was another tremendous battle going on here this weekend. It was the race to 200 miles per hour by full-bodied stock-comparing machines in both Pro Stock and Top Sportsman Eliminator. Last night, it was this machine, Bill Kuhlmann's Missouri Camaro, that made drag racing history by clocking a 202.24 mile per hour charge to become the first carbureted doored vehicle to break 200 miles per hour. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, at 202 miles an hour, we may have not seen the end of this battle. It's going to be a wild day here at the 1987 IHRA Winternationals.
One of the big questions all year long with the IHRA circuit is the top sportsman cars and the incredible speeds they're hitting this year. The man who's standing with me right now is the man who has the secrets to the need to speed, Mike Thermos. And Mike, obviously, there's a reason why they're going faster, and it's nitrous. Tell me about the program and how it works for these cars.
Well, nitrous oxide is an oxidizer for fuel. By injecting it into the motor, we can make tremendous amounts of horsepower and torque. That's just what these cars need. You can see speeds of over 207 miles an hour in Kuhlmann's case, and ETs as low as 7 seconds flat. And we're tuning them up to try and get into the 6-second bracket as soon as we can get the tires to hook and stay on the track.
Let's talk a little bit about exactly how it all works. Explain this gizmo here. This is a manifold, obviously, and this is the system that puts the nitrous in. Tell me a little bit about and point out the areas, where the nitrous is injected into the manifold and how it works.
Well, this is essentially a NOS ProShot Fogger 2. And what it is a system that injects nitrous and fuel, because the fuel is what really makes the horsepower, not the nitrous oxide. The nitrous oxide simply oxidizes that fuel. And the red here is where the fuel comes in, and the blue is where the nitrous comes in.
Right.
Now, when this goes into the engine, it gives it a tremendous fogging effect, much like a perfume nozzle actually atomizes. This goes into the combustion chamber and lights with a lot more heat value, and energy comes out of that motor because of that. It's kind of a new wave to make horsepower.
At 198.67 miles an hour at 709. Those guys will never leave the state of California again. Race fans, give the crew for Charlie Carpenter a big round of applause. They'll never leave this drag strip. Oh, I'll tell you, 709 with a 1 at 198.67 miles an hour. The 55 told the story. Chevrolet is number 1.
That was a drag race.
I am Eli Gold. It's a pleasure to have you along with us. In our previous coverages of IHRA racing, we've shown you the top sportsmen, but there's a difference here today. Let's meet our first two competitors, and then we'll tell you more about what's in store. Walter Henry in the near lane, Ken Karsten, a native of St. Louis, in the far lane, both in their 1989 Corvettes. Now remember, in previous Top Sportsman shows here on Thursday Thunder, we told you how you used to have to dial in what you would expect would be your elapsed speed, or time actually, and you couldn't go quicker than that. Well, forget that here today. The Quick 8, head-to-head, flat-out drag racing. First man to the finish line wins. Walter Henry in the green machine here in the near lane. He'll pull away from Ken Karsten. 188.63 miles per hour. Compare that to a 184.68 for Ken Karsten. Now an interesting matchup here. Robbie Vandergriff and Mike Ashley. There's Vandergriff in the 57 Chevrolet. He's been featured on our program in the past, as has Mike Ashley of Melville, Long Island, New York. He was the quickest of the door slammers back at Englishtown, New Jersey, when he broke 200 miles an hour. Robbie Vandergriff and Mike Ashley. Again, no dial-ins involved here. First man to the finish line wins. On the break, Ashley sideways. He'll save it, but Vandergriff is pulling away. Give this win to the shoebox car, Robbie Vandergriff, 720, 192.77 miles an hour. Mike Ashley managed to save it after that tough start. Car just bouncing down the far lane. He ends at a 767, 195.35, but it's Rob Vandergriff who will advance in his 57 Chevrolet. That's the burnout for Bill Kuhlmann. And if you like the nostalgia look, how's that for you? The 40 Willie of Scotty Cannon. He too has been featured here on Thursday Thunder on a previous show from Bristol, Tennessee. The 40 Willie against the 89 Chevrolet Beretta. Sunlight beginning to dwindle even more so here at the Gateway International Raceway in St. Louis, Missouri. The late model against the nostalgia look. Near lane, Cannon. Far lane, Kuhlmann. Kuhlmann somewhat sideways. Cannon, he's straight as an arrow. Pulling away at the line, Scotty Cannon and his 40 Willie advancing 722, 193.91 miles an hour. Kuhlmann 736, 192.92. And you see neither man really getting the whole shot right there. The great break for both, but then Kuhlmann begins to zig and zag just a bit as that Beretta wants to have a mind of its own. And straight as an arrow for Scotty Cannon. And that was the difference in that competition right there. Now our last run in the Quick 8 quarterfinals. Donnie Little and Gordy Meal. Little in the near lane. And that's a look at Gordy Meal. Yes, if that last name sounds familiar to a racing fan, it should. His cousin Steve Meal is the crew chief on the Winston Cup stock car driven by Mark Martin of Batesville, Arkansas. Good look at both Gordy Meal and Donnie Little. The Camaro against the Pontiac. Both men with nitrous power. You see Little in the near lane venting that nitrous. That was what looked like steam to you and I, venting towards the sky. Little in the near lane. Great jump for Meal in the far lane. Little's car sideways, but the whole shot's going to win it. No one's going to catch Gordy Meal as he pulls away. 722, 195.36. Interestingly,
Pro Modified, a new class for the International Hot Rod Association. Ronnie Sox on the line against Tim McCamus. Sox leads first. What a hole shot. He's ahead of the 8th mile. But here comes McCamus. McCamus will move into the semifinals. In the final round of Pro Modified, it was Tim McCamus against Ed Hoover. McCamus has difficulties. He's left on the starting line broken, and Hoover will win the Winternationals. The point stand.
This would be a great matchup. In the far lane, 200-mile-an-hour Bill Kuhlmann against the kid from New York, Mike Ashley. Mike Ashley in the most previous round turned in a 7:14, so he's on the money. Kuhlmann could only muster up a 13:41 as he took a single when Eddie Harris broke. Ashley is number 3 in points. Kuhlmann number 5 in points. And Kuhlmann gets sideways, but he manages to get it pointed straight again. Ashley, your winner.
We'll go to quarterfinal action in Pro Modified. Our first matchup, Killer Brooks and Canadian racer Al Billis.
Al Billis has been running very well in the Pro Modified Wars. He managed to bump off Ronnie Sox in round number 1 to get right here in round 2 against the Killer.
Killer Brooks knocked off Rob Vandergriff. Great start in the left lane. Brooks carries the front wheels. Billis gets him off the line and holds it to the finish.
What a run for Al Billis with a 7:08, 202.89 miles per hour. He goes into the semis.
Our next matchup, Blake Wiggins getting sideways on his burnout, directed into position by the lady for whom the car is named, his wife, Wicked Wanda Wiggins.
Blake went up against this guy, Stanley Barker, who was not supposed to be here. Back in the first round of competition, Mike Ashley, the kid from New York, got bent completely out of shape, was over against the guardrail, and that's all Stanley Barker needed to be able to advance to the next round.
And so the number 16 qualifier knocked off the number 1 qualifier to earn the right to get into the quarterfinals against Blake Wiggins, and he'll really have his hands full here.
Barker, hailing out of Dunlop, Tennessee, a newcomer to the Pro Modified Wars. Blake, an old veteran.
Wiggins got the whole shot on him and extended it all the way to the finish. Wiggins goes to the semis.
Wiggins with a 7:02, 203 miles per hour, and Wanda nods her approval of that run as Blake goes into the semifinal.
For our next matchup, we step back to the nostalgia cars. The 1940 Willies of Scotty Cannon, who had a pretty eventful first round of his own. In the right lane, Cannon knocked off Tim McAmis, the number 5 qualifier.
Well, Scotty Cannon, no newcomer. As a matter of fact, he was runner-up to the event at New York, so this really isn't that big of an upset, although that big 40 Willies pushes a lot of front air mass with that huge front end.
Now the guy he's up against, Michael Martin, is coming in off his first ever venture into the 6-second range in qualifying. Martin in the far lane, both cars away cleanly. Scotty getting a little bit sideways there, but he manages to pull it back together. Now can he run down Martin? No!
Michael Martin, 7:04, 203 miles per hour to barely nip Scotty Cannon. I'll tell you, that's worth one more look.
In the right lane, Scotty Cannon got a little bit sideways. I thought he was going to be able to straighten it up and pull it off, but despite tire smoke off the back wheels, thank goodness for electronic timers. Michael Martin moves on. And our final matchup now, here is one of the most controversial cars in the class. One of the few supercharged machines in Pro Modified, certainly the only really successful one. And starter Jim Blakely over there to have a look at Freddie Hahn's Corvette.
Well, they're making certain nothing's wrong. There is Jim Audi right there in the pink hat motioning his car forward to the line. Jim Audi is a genius when it comes to supercharged alcohol cars. Freddie Hahn has to be one of the greatest drivers in Pro Modified.
Coming down from West Seneca, New York, he's probably a big favorite here, Fred Hahn. He is up against Wally Stroop from Kings Mountain, North Carolina.
Stroop bumped off a supercharged car in the first round, incidentally, Eddie Harris.
Let's see if he can make it 2 in a row. But wow, Freddie Hahn got the whole shot. Stroop got sideways. He's going to have to lift out. Easy run for Hahn.
Freddie Hahn right in the thick of things with a 7:03, 186 miles per hour.
In 1990 at Norwalk Raceway Park, Eddie Harris took the ride of a lifetime in Pro Modified qualifying. Harris jumps to an early lead on opponent Killer Brooks. Eddie's car makes a sharp turn to the left into Killer's lane and plows into the guardrail, causing his car to roll over repeatedly. Killer barely escaped with an experienced maneuver into the opposite lane.
Here's to the top end of the racetrack. We saw some smoke coming from Eddie Harris. I can't tell you what happened to Cleveland. Yet they're what they are hired and trained to do, and that is to think quick in situations like this. They're trying to come forward, and instead of Eddie Harris, and this look, I believe, still look.
The PTS rescue unit jumped to action and pulled Eddie out of the rubble. Amazingly, he too walked away unharmed.
First up, Wally Stroop, one of the quickest and fastest Pro Modifieds you'll find anywhere. And he will be going up against one of the most controversial cars in the series, Randy Moore's supercharged Tostiasti Spumati Lamborghini. But right now, Stroop is the only guy at the starting line.
Well, they tell us that Moore is back in the staging lanes, and he's having a lot of trouble getting the car fired up. Nicky Lawson, the crew chief right now on the Stroop Lawson entry, motioning his driver to go up in stage. Now we see Moore as he pulls up into the water box, getting ready to make the burnout. However, we're probably having some heat buildup over there in the Stroop machine. He may well elect to stage and take the tree, Bob.
Now, there is a time limit. You have to get to the staging area, and it looks as though starter Jim Blakely is not going to let Randy Moore pull in, and Wally Stroop will have a walkover.
Stroop waited what he felt was a reasonable amount of time and takes an easy win at 7:14. Meanwhile, Moore will shut the car off.
Ooh, and I'm sure there's going to be some discussion about that in the pit areas. Here is the defending Pro Modified champion, Tim McAmis, and he will be going up against the ageless wonder, Ronnie Sachs.
Well, you know, Sachs was sticking needles into Kuhlmann's car. You better worry about this guy first. The defending world champ qualified number 4 in the field. Sachs qualified number 5.
Opening the door on these door slammers in order to let some air in. There's a good look at young Tim McAmis. We mentioned earlier when you saw John Montecalvo's Pro Stock car crash that it was built in Jerry Bickle's race shop. This young man works in Jerry Bickle's race shop in Moscow Mills, Missouri. Young Tim McAmis.
Sachs is ever, of course, out of Burlington, North Carolina, where he built up the legendary name of the Blonde Bomber, one of the fastest men on the 4-speeds back in the early Pro Stock days. Now has advanced into this exciting new Pro Modified category with a very popular car, a 1964 Comet, just like the car he started drag racing in.
Ronnie Sachs is a little bit more gray than he is blonde these days, but he'll still nail you to the tree if you're not careful. Looks like McAmis got the jump on him. They are about even at half track now. Ronnie Sachs has the advantage, and he'll carry it to the finish.
Sachs pulls it out with a 7:07, 198 miles per hour, and a 0:19 reaction time.
Now here is Bill Kuhlmann, who's already made the changes on his car, who already got a look at Robbie Vandergriff, who will be his opponent. There's Vandergriff. This is supposed to be a 57 Chevrolet, and this was a very controversial car in terms of aerodynamics as well, Ted.
They've called it a Studebaker, and obviously he's designing that in a wind tunnel too, as the innovation continues to roll on in this Pro Modified category.
Wow, we've got a lot of smoke in the right lane for Bill Kuhlmann's car. It looks like he's got a problem, and he gets a little sideways on the racetrack as Vandergriff drives away.
Vandergriff with a 697, 200.12 miles per hour. Let's look at Kuhlmann. That smoke probably put some oil down, and he gets completely out of shape right now. He does the wisest thing. He lifts.
Well, it's been a tough season thus far for Bill Kuhlmann. Our fourth matchup will pit Scotty Cannon in the near lane up against Canadian Al Billis.
Al Billis right now, without doubt, the leader in technology in Pro Modified with a computer that is giving him a whole raft of information.
Cannon, the number 2 qualifier. Billis, already a winner this year, the number 7 qualifier. This should be a good matchup. From high above Thunder Valley, you see the cars launch. Billis gets a little squirrely on the left. They are about even at mid-track. This is a drag race, and I think Cannon wins.
Wow, Cannon pulls it out at the very last minute.
Round at Pro Modified. In our first pair, Bill 200-mile-an-hour Kuhlmann against Tommy Hunt, part of the only father-son team in professional Pro Modified drag racing.
Well, for Bill Kuhlmann, this is his home track. He wants to shine in front of the hometown fans. He's from Wentzville, Missouri, right up the road, Bob.
Kuhlmann, the second man to stage. Lights up, they are away. Hunt with a great start, but gets a little sideways down the strip. Watch as Bill Kuhlmann comes on strong and drives around.
Oh, Kuhlmann barely squeaks that out with a 7:10, 198 mile per hour. Good racing.
Then it was Blake Wiggins up against Robbie Vandergriff, one of the real coming stars in this class. Wiggins nailed him to the tree and then simply drove away.
Look at Blake, a car length open on him, a 7:11, 188 miles per hour in that new Pontiac.
Then we got a close look at the man who won the very first Pro Modified race ever, Ed Hoover out of Columbia, South Carolina, racing this man, Manny DeJesus.
They love the Witch Doctor because he's driving a 1967 Chevy Nova, or Deuce as they're sometimes called, very popular with the fans.
The reaction times in this run, unbelievable. Hoover and DeJesus nailed the tree, each of them, but DeJesus got a little out of shape, and off the center line, Hoover wins.
7:04, 199 miles per hour. They started going faster now as the day progressed.
Both men under 1/10 of a second of reaction time. Then it was Chris Hunt, the other half of the father-son Hunt team, against Killer Brooks, and watch the top-end charge in the right lane.
Look at Killer Brooks. He's on a roll again. A 7:27, 198 miles per hour.
And then we got to look at Wally Stroop in the fastest car in the class. His opponent, Brian Gom.
Well, Stroop qualified number 1, so he should have this one walking away, and he pulls it out barely with a 7:10, 198 miles per hour.
And our final matchup, hitting the quickest car in the class, Scotty Cannon out of Lyman, South Carolina, up against Chuck Van-Vallis in his first appearance here in Pro Modified Round of 16.
Van-Vallis very popular because of the old Dodge, but look at Scotty Cannon and the OnSat 40 Chevrolet, a 706.
Take a look at what happened to Randy Moore. We've already seen Randy blow the engine and taking the #1 qualifying spot. During his competition run against Norm Wisner, he darn near put it into the cheap seat.
What a terrible shame for Randy Moore, who had everybody wondering if this could be the event. But he's been doing this all season long. He has some tremendous handling difficulties with that Lamborghini. Watch the inexperience now of the young driver. The minute you touch that out-of-bounds marker, you should shut the car down instantly.
Now here comes Willie McKinnon from Long Island, New York, in a 1970 Chevy Chevelle replica car with 638 cubic inches. What a job he's got. Here comes the 92 Lumina Z34 of the runaway leader in the class, Scotty Cannon, the defending Pro Mod World Champion.
Well, you can bet the fans are pulling for Willie McKinnon, the hometown favorite. Also, the 70 Chevelle is one of the most popular models ever produced by Chevrolet. And a red light start, Bob.
A red light by Scotty Cannon, and we never see that out of him.
Scotty having a little staging problem there. Willie McKinnon wins with a 7:02, and you can bet Scotty Cannon is sick. Let's look one more time at that red light start. Scotty lurched forward and then stopped. When the starter hit the tree, of course, Scotty was not in the beam, so the red light came on.
Never got into it. And with that, we do not have a supercharged car in the semi. Our first matchup in the quarterfinals was a walkover for this man, Animal Jim Fuhrer from Lakin, Illinois, because his opponent, Jeff Brozovich, red-lighted, and here it is.
But Animal Jim didn't waste it. He ran a 691. I don't believe it. Animal, a 691.
One of the great all-time match racers. There's a look at Al Billis from Barrie, Ontario, #2 in points for the second year in a row. He beat Fast Eddie Hoover in the first round. His opponent, Gary Grainer from Orchard Park, New York. Now notice Al Billis, who sometimes runs a supercharged engine, is going with a nitrous boosted machine this weekend.
Look at Grainer's car carry that front wheel.
Close race, but it'll go to Billis. 689, 200.35 miles an hour, and a solid reaction time.
List the number on Grainer. How about this? A 689. Identical ETs. It was one right off the starting line. Billis with a 451 reaction time to Grainer's losing 472.
At half track, Al Billis had him by a fender. I think it might have been even closer than that at the finish, as Grainer posted a great top-end charge.
2 689s. You can't get much closer than this right here.
Now, fans of IHRA Racing here on ESPN know that the battle was between supercharged and nitrous-boosted engines this year. 14 nitrous cars, 2 supercharged began the day. We're down to 6 nitrous and 2 supercharged in the quarterfinals. Now, there's Pete Williams, who missed a few races this year. He was up to 3rd in the points earlier this season, well back now in the 6th spot. His opponent, the 1990 world champion in the class, Tim McCamus from Moscow Mills, Missouri.
McCamus would like to get back up on top. He's had kind of a tough year. Right here's his chance to move into the semifinals. He needs this one.
McCamus is a car builder by trade. He built his own machine. Problem for Williams. McCamus will take it.
Tim McCamus with a sensational 6.76, 203 miles per hour. He is back.
And now our final matchup. This is Mark Carter from Oak Arch, Oklahoma, who beat Tommy Mooney in the first round. His opponent, the Cannonball, Scotty Cannon from Lyman, South Carolina, the defending world champion, #1 in points, coming in, a 526 cubic inch supercharged Chevy under the hood. You see Scotty in there talking to himself.
What can you do against this guy? He's been running 660s consistently. If I were Carter, I'd take a shot on the tree.
Big revs from that alcohol-burning supercharged machine. Both cars carrying the wheels. The wheels come down for Cannon, and he wins it.
Scotty Cannon, a 6.67, 206 mile per hour.
In Pro Modified quarterfinals, there's Gary Grainer out of Orchard Park, New York, in his 67 Camaro, 705 cubic inches of nitro-boosted Chevy power. His opponent, Michael Martin from Pageland, South Carolina, with a radical 92 Chevy Lumina bodywork, 632 cubic inches of Pontiac power under the hood. Martin, the Spring Nationals winner at Bristol, Tennessee earlier this year, has been kind of a downer for him since. You're on board with his helmet cam. Takes it 687, 200.22 miles an hour, and a great reaction time. As you can see, Martin on the right had his man at half track and drove away. A car length at the finish line. Now there is a look at Brian Gamm out of Lucasville, Ohio, a 92 Chevy Lumina, 632 cubic inch nitro boosted Chevy under the hood. His opponent, the supercharged Chevrolet of Al Billis from Barrie, Ontario. You're on board with Billis. Al Billis, number 2 in points, takes it. There you saw the numbers. Here's another look at the launch. See Gamm in the far lane, creeping a bit. Took a run at Billis, but it didn't work. Gamm just 13 thousandths of a second off of a perfect reaction time. Billis actually left at the lights by 2/10. Now there is Mr. 200 miles an hour, Bill Kuhlmann from Wentzville, Missouri, and his radical 92 Chevy Camaro. With 698 inches of nitrous boosted power. Remember, Kuhlmann is the man who switches back and forth to a supercharged power plant when he thinks he needs one. His opponent, the former world champion, Tim McAmis. Kuhlmann carries the wheels. They're even at half track. Now Kuhlmann begins to pull away and wins it. Bill Kuhlmann will advance into the semifinals. Tim McAmis, the defending World Nationals champion, is undone, and here you see it.
Pump. Clearly an advantage for Al Billis going in with almost a half a second lead comparing qualifying times.
Whoa, and really in trouble off the starting line, but now coming right back on. Oh, my! What? Unbelievable come from behind.
A phenomenal run. We've just about all but counted Al Billis out of this one. Let's watch it again.
You can see in trouble, but if he looks over at Janice, he spots Janice in trouble, and just like that, he said, look at this. I'm going to win this thing.
Well, it was only a 7:52 elapsed time, but it was good enough.
You think Billis wants a piece of this guy right now?
I'll tell you what, it could really change the whole complexion of this race with the 670 that came out of nowhere. Scotty Cannon's got to be thinking about that one now as he faces Killer Brooks.
Brooks has been on a roll this race.
Well, Cannon can't give all his attention to Billis yet. He's got to get through Brooks. And look out, Scotty Cannon sideways as he went off of that right lane pad again.
From 0 to over 200 miles an hour, under 7 seconds flat. Now that's speed. It's time now for our regular news feature, brought to you by Drag Review. Here's Brett with the headline, New Machinery.
On this edition of Drag Review, it's nothing but the news, the new car news. It's amazing that at the 29th annual Snap-on Tools Spring Nationals, so many new cars would be debuted, especially this late in the season. As a matter of fact, there are brand new race cars in virtually every single pro category, including the shocker of them all, the brand new Corvette debuted by the one and only Scotty Cannon. Now, let's face it, Cannon has been the dominant force in the Onset Magazine Chevy Luminas and ZR1s for the last 18 months or so. In the last month, however, alone, he's been in the finals of 2 match races and lost what would have been his 12th and 13th consecutive event wins went down the drain. So Cannon decided to fight fire with fire and debut a brand new onset Chevy Corvette right here at the Spring Nationals. It made its maiden voyage in qualifying, and the car went from a bare chassis to a competitive race car in less than 4 days.
All right, thank you, Brett. We have a big crowd on hand on a beautiful summer day here in Thunder Valley. Let's move to the quarterfinals of Pro Modified. There he is, the Animal Jim Fuhrer from Lakewood, Illinois. His opponent, Mark Carter from Okarsh, Oklahoma.
Well, Carter got here by going past Pat Moore in the first round. As you know, Moore drives that potent Camaro owned by NBA star Larry Nance. And Animal got here by beating Jim Halsey, a Maryland ZR1 Corvette, powered by a 706 Chevy. So, 2 700 cubic inch cars on the line, but it's Ford versus Pontiac.
You heard Brett Kepner mention match racing, big bucks exhibition races. Animal Jim Fuhrer is the man to watch in match racing, and right now he lays a huge tree on Mark Carter.
Animal Jim with a 486 reaction picks up the win with a 694, 201 mile per hour. Actually, Carter was quicker with a 679.
But the difference, a 6:58 reaction time for Carter, almost 2/10 slower than Fuhrer. We move on now to Steve Johnson from Carpentersville, Illinois, against Donnie Little from Fillmore, Illinois.
Johnson running 706 cubic inches of Chevrolet, as is Donnie Little. Now, Little match raced for the past couple of years. He's just now stepping into prominence on the IHRA circuit.
And all Chevy battles. 2 more nitrous boosted cars. We have yet to see one of the big blowers that's common to the alcohol burning machines. Great looking Corvette for Steve Johnson, and a great launch. Little very slow getting up to speed. An easy run for Johnson.
Johnson with a 687, 200 miles per hour. The reacts actually were pretty identical, 514 to a 515, but Little definitely had a problem right off the line.
Now here comes the man we've been talking about, the Cannonball, Scotty Cannon from Lyman, South Carolina. His opponent, young Jason Peterson from Sioux City, Iowa.
Peterson with a 706 cubic inch Pontiac. Scotty, of course, limited to only 526 cubic inches. That's the maximum you can have when you set a big huffer on top.
Now there you see the huffer, the blower. Very distinctive. The supercharged cars like Scotty Cannon, as opposed to the nitrous boosted cars like Jason Peterson's with the hood scoop.
Peterson may well try and put a gate job on Cannon. He has to take a shot on him because let's face it, Scotty runs, and he does.
Peterson, 423 to 494 reaction time, but he breaks at half track.
Oh, you had him covered. Scotty Cannon, 674, 193 miles per hour. Peterson put a gate job on him, then broke.
So Steve Johnson will face Animal Jim in the next round. Scotty Cannon will take on former class champion Tim McAmis, who beat Pete Williams in round number 2. Welcome back to Huntsville International Dragway on the Snap-on Tools Bama Nitrous Nationals. Bob Varsha, Ted Jones with you. We'll begin our coverage of eliminations in the quarterfinals of Pro Mod. In our first matchup, there is Mark Carter from Okarsh, Oklahoma. His opponent from Wentzville, Missouri, Bill Kuhlmann.
Well, Bill, as he's known, 200 mile per hour, Kuhlmann, the first guy to go over 200 mile an hour in a full-body door slammer car in IHRA's Pro Modified class, but he always did it with nitrous oxide injection. After Scotty Cannon did so well with a blower, Bill said, hey, me too. He put the huffer in, and here he is.
And this is an example of a supercharged car going up against a nitrous oxide assisted car. That's what Carter has under the hood. The telltale sign, of course, is that big blower on the top of Kuhlmann's engine. This is our first look at his new Corvette, one sharp piece.
Kuhlmann 525 cubic inches. That's the limit on a supercharged car. Carter 706.
Carter left Kuhlmann by 0.13 seconds off the line.
Bill pulled it out anyway. Let's look again. A 444 winning ET as Kuhlmann just pulls it out with raw horsepower. Watch at the finish line right there.
I hate to break the news, but it was a 447. It must have been all over.
It was everywhere. It was everywhere. We were lucky just to get down to this end.
Well, your opponent, Mark Carter, had bigger problems. He's in the 460s, but what does that tell you about what the track can take?
I don't know. I think we're going to have to adjust the Canuter valve a little bit.
That Canuter valve. I think we're getting a little hot in there from Bill Kuhlmann. Our next matchup will be Tommy Mooney from Shelby, North Carolina, and Al Billis from Barrie, Ontario, Canada.
Well, Billis had done very well on the IHRA trail in previous years. He's dropped the supercharger on it too, running 526 cubic inches of Chevrolet power. Mooney will be running 646 cubic inches of nitrous oxide injected Pontiac for power.
Al Billis from a Canadian motorsports family. His dad is one of the principals in Canadian Tire. And that's where Al Billis learned to build engines. He began building them for Indy cars. Now, of course, he's a drag racing star in Pro Mod. Tommy Mooney, on the other hand, also a car builder, but a chassis expert.
Oh, Mooney's out first. Good hole shot, Bob.
Tommy Mooney, by 4/100ths of a second, has the hole shot and sets down the number 2 man in the class last year.
A 4:38 winning laps time at 165 miles per hour. As we watch it again, let's go to top end. Here's Brett.
I'll tell you what, the Mooney Mobile is a bracket racer today. What kind of number were you expecting on that run?
Well, it went a 39 in the right lane. I figured it'd go faster, maybe not.
Well, went a 38, and I'm inclined to believe that you probably have it set right up at that number.
Well, we'll take it.
Yeah, this is the Tommy Mooney routine here. Oh, yes, well, maybe it went that. Yeah, I know you. The question is a 38 going to be enough to take you through the semis?
I doubt it. We're going to have to do something.
And you will, I know it.
I hear you, Brett.
Tommy Mooney, not the only man who's going to have to do something. This 1/8 of a mile has been very unkind to some of the men in the paddock. Once again, here's Brett.
Pardon the pun, but Pro Mod racing is getting more and more explosive. In fact, during the very first qualifying sessions here at the Bama Nitrous Nationals, home state favorite Norman Estes' brand new ZR1 Corvette suffered this incredible intake manifold explosion. Now, you can see the damage that it did. There was literally nothing left of the hood scoop. This isolator tray that keeps the carburetors in their own air was destroyed. The intake manifold itself came apart, obviously. The windshield was blown to bits, the firewall was pushed back, and the front end was completely destroyed on the car. Now, something that needs to be looked at in this situation is why would this explosion occur? Well, these intake manifold explosions are similar to drag racing supercharger explosions. Usually it's a problem with the valve train. An intake valve hangs open, the spark plug fires, and it ignites not only what's in the cylinder, but what's in the intake manifold. In this case, nitrous oxide, air, and gasoline. However, when you look at things like this occurring, it's amazing that more damage was not done. And right now, this particular incident has caused the IHRA technical officials to think seriously about putting supercharger ballistic bags around the intake manifolds of these cars. Whether or not that rule comes into effect remains to be seen, but one thing about Norman Estes' efforts, now he's down to only 2 cars.
Well, that's good for Norman Estes. If you're running a one-car show, that can be a very devastating mechanical problem. Here's a look at our next matchup. There's Steve Johnson from Carpentersville, Illinois. His opponent, Scotty Cannon, the #1 man in the class for the last 2 years running from Lyman, South Carolina, the #1 qualifier.
Scotty with some tremendous backing from Onsat, the magazine people that put out a magazine. It's like a TV guide for satellite dishes.
2 Corvette ZR1s. Oh, big problems for Johnson in the left lane. Cannon comes through with a victory.
Johnson actually left on him a 513 to a 533. There you see the whole shot, but then Johnson had some sort of problems, got a little out of shape. Scotty, like he was on a set of railroad tracks, rocketed through to a 427, 167-mile-an-hour victory. Let's go to the top end with Brett again with Scotty Cannon.
You know, every spectator is saying this guy is unbelievable. Every racer is calling you a lot of other things. How in the world, on a racetrack that only produced 1 430 in this whole round so far, can you come out and go 427?
Just tune for it, man.
What did you tune for? I mean, we got more heat on the racetrack than anything else. The track is getting a little bit slippery because of it. What do you tune to fix something like that?
Well, you know, we race these 8 miles all the time. We race here a good bit, and we race over the weekend, race 52 times a year. So you just keep remembering what you've done, keep good books, and don't be scared. Don't be afraid to change your car when the weather changes for you. You got to stay 1 step behind it. If you'll stay right behind it, then you can make it do it. But, you know, we'd still miss it, but I know it looks good, but, you know, we still miss it. It's just racing. You just do the best you can.
Now there is one of the secrets to Scotty Cannon's success. He races 52 weekends a year. Now here's our final matchup in the quarterfinals of Pro Mod. Jason Peterson from Sioux City, Iowa against Brian Gamm from Lucasville, Ohio.
Talk about lopsided on cubic inch size of engines. Peterson running 706 cubic inches of Pontiac. Gamm, a relatively small motor, 632 inches.
Peterson, part of a 3-car family team with father Chuck and younger brother Chad. They both went out in the first round. He's trying to uphold family honor, and he does.
Jason Peterson, a 441 with an identical 441 for Brian Camp. The difference right off the starting line, a 490 to a 570 reaction time.
I'll tell you what, a lot of people would have thought that was the closest race imaginable. Both cars at 441, but it was 7/100ths difference at the finish line. You murdered Brian Game.
It was tough. Brian's tough. We both been running good. I shook tires pretty hard in third gear. We should be able to run a mid-30 next round, hopefully.
Well, with both cars run the same elapsed time, only the driver wins it, my friend, and you did it in a big way.
Well, that's good. I've been working hard this, over the winter trying to do this. I had a tough time last year, and it's paying off so far.
It sure is.
Thank you.
Right now, let's get things underway with the year's first edition of Drag Review. Here's Brett Kepner.
Well, it's 1994, and what would the new season be without a little bit of controversy in the Pro Mod pit area? Through the winter, the International Hot Rod Association made several major rules revisions that have changed the face of Pro Modified. The biggest difference comes in what the cars weigh, because now there is an advantage given to some of the earlier model body styles, or nostalgia cars as we call them, to be a little bit more competitive and to generate some new vehicles in the category. You might remember last year we saw more Corvette ZR1s in this category than anything else. Let's face it, they were a very, very slippery combination as far as aerodynamics are concerned. But now, if you run a nitrous oxide-injected nostalgia car, you can weigh 2,400 pounds with driver. If you run a supercharged nostalgia car, which, by the way, is defined as 1969 and earlier, you have to weigh 2,550. If you run a late-model nitrous car, it's 2,500. If you run a blown late-model car, it's 2,650. What does that mean? Well, obviously, the drivers who choose a supercharged 1970 or later body style are going to weigh a lot more than everybody else. So they would be the heavily penalized combination in this particular class. Well, that doesn't explain why Bill Kuhlmann in the Summit Racing Equipment Corvette ran 6.64 seconds in qualifying, and indeed, that led the field up until the very last run of the very last qualifying session when Scotty Cannon's new nostalgia body blown Willys ran 6.59 seconds. Now, that particular run by Kuhlmann raised a lot of eyebrows. This car theoretically should not be that quick. But during the winter season, Kuhlmann, using a high helix supercharger, which is not legal in IHRA Pro Mod, and taking 150 pounds of weight out of the car, ran 6.34 seconds at 219 miles per hour in match races in Texas. Now, that kind of performance scared a lot of people. This performance here didn't do anything to help Kuhlmann's image with his peers. But one thing's for sure, the controversy has not died down.
Now let's get things underway with the class Brett was just talking about. Quarterfinals of Pro Mod. There is Jim Halsey from Street, Maryland in his 93 Corvette. And there is Chris Hunt from Killen, Alabama in a 92 Chevy Lumina.
The Hunt family owns a car restoration company down in Killen, Alabama. I'm absolutely surprised that he's not running one of these new nostalgia cars, Bob.
Chris Hunt has spent every birthday since he was 16 years old at a drag strip. There you see the nitrous bottles being opened up in Jim Halsey's Chevy.
We have exactly 4 supercharged cars and 4 nitrous cars right here in this round of competition.
And 3 of our quarterfinalists are using nostalgia bodywork. Here's a look at our new start line boom cam. Bit of a dramatic effect right there.
Both cars taking their time staging up. A new starter this year, I should say new. The head starter this year is Clyde Spook Peak.
Cars are staged, they're away. Carrying the front wheels in the right lane is Halsey. Looks like Hunt has the advantage at half track and holds it to the finish.
Chris Hunt with a 672 was just a little late off the line. Actually, Halsey came off the line first, didn't have enough ET.
Our next pair, there is Carl Moyer from Ankeny, Iowa. His opponent, Bill Kuhlmann, the man that Brett Kepner was talking about with the heaviest car in the Pro Mod category. But he has been posting some incredible numbers once again to the blue bottle. A bottled supercharger, the racers call it.
Actually, a better definition would be oxygen in a bottle. It adds oxygen to the combustion chamber, and obviously you can burn more gasoline if you can mix it with oxygen, so you put it in there under high pressure.
Kuhlmann, the last inch in, and away they go. Once again, looks like more grip in the right lane as Kuhlmann takes the lead at half track. Can he hold it?
Kuhlmann pulls out the win with a whole shot of 443 to a 488 reaction time. Kuhlmann actually ran slower, a 672 to Moyer's losing 669.
Now here's one of our nostalgia cars, Chuck Peterson from Dakota Dunes, South Carolina in a 69 Chevelle. His opponent over on the other side, the first champion this class ever had back in 1990, Tim McCamus from Hawk Point, Maryland, in a 93 Corvette ZR1.
You set it up right, Bob. This is the Supercharger versus the Nitrous injected. Both of these guys with plenty of experience in this particular class. So this may tell us something, how these new weight breaks are going to affect the class.
Distinctive engine note from the supercharged cars. They launch. Looks like McCamus with the advantage as they come off the concrete.
Remember, the blower pulls hard on top end. Peterson barely noses him out. A 666 to a losing 677. McCamus, incidentally, had a great hole shot, almost a tenth of a second.
Now our final pair. There is the OnSat 41 Blown Willies of Scotty Cannon running in front of the home fans. He's from Lyman, South Carolina. His opponent from Dakota Dunes, South Carolina, Chuck Peterson's son, Chad Peterson, also driving a 69 Chevelle.
Now you can hear the nitrous system being purged. The idea is to let the hotter gases out of the line so you have cold nitrous oxide right out of the bottle ready to hit that intake.
Peterson family is trying to hedge the market here on power supplies. Chad Peterson uses a 706 cubic inch Pontiac motor with nitrous. His dad has the supercharged combination. This one is all Scotty Cannon.
Indeed it is. Cannon was off the line first. A 666. Scotty is on a roll indeed. Peterson slowed to it.
So Charlie Garrett will be the early season championship leader in pro stock. We move now to pro modified. Here's the guy who's been leading this class for the last 3 seasons. The OnSat 41 Willies of Scotty Cannon going up against the blown 1994 Chevy Corvette of Bill Kuhlmann.
You know, if anybody can stop Scotty Cannon, it has to be Bill Kuhlmann. A lot of experience, an excellent prepared engine and car, the number 1 and 2 qualifiers on the line right here in the final.
That's the way it's supposed to work. And keep in mind, Kuhlmann comes in on a roll. He won the last event of last season. Great launch for both drivers.
This is the best side-by-side race, Bob, we've had all day long. It'll be Bill Kuhlmann winning it, a 635 to a 636. Now, the IHRA is telling us we probably have a rear wheel start here. Those times are impossible. Look at the reaction time, 791 to 794. Move the 3/10 over, you've got a 660 run. As we watch it again, you'll see just how close it was at the finish.
That was so sweet, so close. Way to start a year, finally.
Revenge from last year.
Hey, we work one race at a time. It's one step toward a world championship. I never make promises, but we did make the first step. The crew this weekend, Beth, Jim Spitzer, Brian Huffmeyer, son Jimmy, everybody there did a fantastic job. You have to in that deal. And thanks again to Rick Hickman for coming over and looking at the fuel system and getting us back on target.
Finished number 2 in the world last year. You're number 1 in the world right now,
Yeah,
buddy.
for right now, it's sweet.
And now we move to our final professional category, Pro Modified. Now, if we're going to see our first 2-time winner this season, this could be the guy, Carl Moyer, who won the Spring Nationals at Bristol. To do it, he's going to have to get around Chris Hunt in his very first Pro Mod final.
Chris Hunt qualified number 3. Moyer, the number 5 qualifier. According to the mathematics, he shouldn't even be here. Moyer's been running 670s. Chris Hunt has been running about 680s with 1.673 in round number 2.
Chris Hunt knows what it means to be in a championship final. He made one back in 1992 in pro stock before moving over to the wilder Pro Modified ranks. Blue nitrous bottle gets a little extra twist as Carl Moyer brings his car to the line at age 51, our oldest finalist this weekend.
Against the youth and quick reflexes of 24-year-old Chris Hunt. Warming the car up now, getting ready to stage so carefully because they need all of the rollout. These cars have such violent reaction that you have to be staged very lightly or you can red light, a legitimate red light, very easily.
Rollout, of course, is the movement of the car from stationary to the light beam at the beginning of the race. Just a few inches, and there is Carl Moyer carrying the wheels off the launch pad, gaining an advantage.
Identical reaction times, but it'll be Carl Moyer with a 664, 210 miles per hour. Both of those cars had identical 494 reacts.
I don't know whether to be astounded by the racetrack or Carl Moyer or both. I guess I have to be by both. Can you believe that kind of number in the final?
Well, we was saving a tune-up, and we needed to save it for the final, and it showed a little life.
Man, the nitrous oxide push system that did so well for you at Bristol, it's got to be an advantage in these conditions. There's no way else you can explain this.
No question about it. I'd say it probably give us about 500s at a minimum on that last pass, but we saved it until then, and that was the way we had planned it all day long if we made it that far, so happy to be here.
It's nice that you're smiling this time.
Yeah, I love it.
Great job.
All right, thank you, Brett. Roy Hill has never been accused of thinking small. That would be an exciting development. Roy Hill, the professor in a top fuel car. Speaking of excitement, here's Carl Moyer, the Iowa Chevy dealer, as we get set for Pro Modified competition. His opponent, Gary Grainer.
Moyer could only qualify number 12. Grainer qualified number 13 in the competition here today. Moyer, the hottest nitrous injected car early in the season, that is, when he bumped off the Spring Nationals and then went on and won the Super Nationals down in Steele, Alabama.
Gary Grainer has been an occasional visitor to the circuit this year in his beautiful nostalgic car, a Chevy Camaro. Moyer was the first man to win back-to-back events this year, but he hasn't seen the finals since, and that could be important here today.
Well, the hot nitrous car now is Shannon Jenkins, who seems to have found the magic combination. However, never count Moyer out. He could uncork a 650 at any moment. Almost a heads-up start. Grainer out slightly ahead of Moyer, and now problems for Moyer as he goes up in smoke and breaks something. Grainer a 681, 181 miles per hour.
Well, here's another look. Watch both lanes. I think Gary Grainer's crew is going to have some fixing to do as well. Plumes of blue smoke out of the back of the car as he hits the chute. Here's our next pair. Shannon Jenkins, who has come on strong during the season. He's a dangerous one. And here's Mark Carter from Oak Harsh, Oklahoma.
Shannon Jenkins, the guy that set down Scotty Cannon out at that Tulsa event and had everybody wondering what his secret was. Carter, meanwhile, the flying Batman, he calls himself. You can never count Mark out.
As you can tell from the for sale sign on the window, here's a great opportunity for someone to get involved in Pro Modified. There is a close look at Shannon Jenkins and his beautiful Chevy Corvette Pro Mod.
Both these guys running the 706 cubic inch Pontiac engines.
Truman at the back flips on the onboard data recorder for the computer analysis later on.
Number 2 against number 10 qualifier. And Carter is out first. A hole shot for Carter. Let's see if he can hold him off. No, it's going to be Shannon Jenkins, a 665, 206 miles per hour.
Something broke underneath Mark Carter's car, a little plume of flame. Our next pair, that's Chuck Peterson from Dakota Dunes, South Dakota. His opponent, Pete Williams from Cottondale, Alabama.
Peterson went over to the blown combination this year, 526 cubic inches of Chevrolet with a big supercharger setting on top using alcohol fuel.
Once again, it's a battle of a contemporary body against the nostalgia car as Chuck Peterson rolls in his beautiful 69 Chevy Chevelle.
Remember, that nostalgia car gives him a 100-pound weight break advantage because theoretically the nostalgia car is more boxy, the shoebox design they call it, pushing more air, not as aerodynamic, and that can start to take its effect at 150 miles an hour and up.
Look right next to the faux headlights and you'll see a little bit of a cleft there. It looks like Peterson has been doing a little aerodynamic work on his car.
You'll have to watch that. Jimmy Smith will be all over him. Pete Williams out first. He's got the whole shot on a big one. However, Peterson drives around him. You can't beat horsepower on top end. 667 for Chuck.
And Peterson threw the blower belt on that supercharger when he got down there. Now to our final pair. Chris Hunt out of Florence, Alabama against the reigning world champion, Scotty Cannon, and problems for Cannon right off the line.
The motor goes away. Scotty's been plagued with engine problems this year. Chris Hunt, a surprise 677 to take the victory.
Well, we said this race offers the opportunity, if not to be a world champion, then to beat one, and that's what Chris Hunt has done. Come back to Darlington, South Carolina, where the sun is getting low as a full day of IHRA drag racing action continues here at the Winternationals. Let's go back to Saturday night. Watch the guy in the left lane, the killer red tomato of four-time Pro Modified champion Scotty Cannon.
He's on a run. He already ran a 655, and he set the world on its air with a 651, a new world record.
But it didn't help him in the first round of Pro Modified against the 37 Chevy of Fred Hahn.
Well, the late night hours took their toll. Scotty Cannon was laid off the line. He went quicker, but Freddie Hahn pulled out the victory with a 680.
Now we move on to quarterfinal action of Pro Modified. There is Pat Moore from Vienna, Ohio, in a 68 Camaro with 698 cubic inches of normally aspirated Pontiac. There's Carl Moyer, two-time winner in 1994 out of Ankeny, Iowa. There on the left, former NBA star, now a full-time Pro Modified car owner, Larry Nance.
Larry Nance had the whole pit area buzzing just before the start of the race when they were talking about Air Jordan coming out of retirement. Nance commented, "That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do that too."
Whatever lies in Larry Nance's future, he loves his drag racing. And look at this pristine number. A 38 Chevy, 706 cubic inches of Pontiac power under the hood.
The Musco Lighted sponsored car purging the nitrous oxide system. That's what appears to be steam coming up in front of the front windshield. The idea is to put cold nitrous oxide right up there to the injectors.
In a normally aspirated engine, you can run nitrous oxide for a power boost. You could also use a supercharged power plant, but without nitrous. There is the launch. Great starting line reaction for both drivers. Moore with the advantage at half track.
Pat Moore picks up the win because he left the line first with a fantastic 4:51 reaction time. We've got to look at that one more time. Carl Moyer actually went 1/100th of a second quicker, but look at Moore off the starting line, cat-like reflexes. That's why he was the 1989 Top Sportsman World Champion.
Moore 1/100th of a second quicker at the green light. Boy, that was a drag race. Now let's take a timeout, get caught up on all things technical. Here is Brett Kepner with this week's Track Facts.
Drag racing is a sport of innovation. There's no question about that. But Pro Mod standout Tommy Gray Jr. has a piece of equipment here at the Winternationals that you got to see to believe. What does that look like? Hard to decipher when you first see it. Believe it or not, that's a series of small light-emitting diodes that are aimed directly at the driver's face that are shift lights inside Tommy Gray's helmet. Believe it or not, when the car reaches a certain RPM, in Tommy's case about 7,500 or so in the 4-speed transmission-equipped Corvette, these lights come on like this and tell Tommy when to pull the gears. Now, for years, racers have used a unit called a shift light or a pro light on the dashboard that also does the same job, directing a bright light at the driver while he's going down the racetrack. And in the sportsman ranks, some of the more enterprising racers are actually using U.S. Air Force technology with display graphics being shot into the inside of their visor. This little unit is handmade, though. It's not very high dollar in any respect, and it helps Tommy drive the car. Interestingly, the IHRA tech officials are thinking about banning Tommy's helmet at the next event because they say it violates the rule of no electronic devices on the driver's person in the car. Right now, Tommy's fighting that rule after all. Spent a lot of time making this little thing.
All right, thank you, Brett. And there is Tommy Gray in his 94 Corvette, 706 cubic inches of Pontiac V8. And his opponent, a fine example of the supercharged option in Pro Modified racing. This is Chuck Peterson from Dakota Dunes, South Dakota, in his 1970 Chevelle.
1970, the last year to be considered nostalgia, incidentally, so he gets the advantage of that weight break with a 70 Chevelle, the most popular year for the Chevelle. Now, he's limited to 526 cubic inches because of the bore, whereas Tommy Gray is allowed to go to 710 cubic inches on nitrous oxide.
You make a good point, Ted. He gets to weigh 100 pounds less because of that nostalgia bodywork. This should be an interesting matchup.
Gray won the 1994 President's Cup up at Budds Creek, Maryland last year, so he's no stranger to the victory circle.
Chuck Peterson won the Dixie Nitrous Nationals, contested over a 1/8 mile drag strip. He should have good reactions. But it's Gray who gets the whole shot marginally on Peterson. Peterson drives around him.
Peterson ETD with a 663 to pull out the victory.
Let's watch. This is close.
Yes, indeed it is, because right off the starting line, Gray had the advantage. However, it's hard to beat the horsepower of that big humper as it starts moving air down the 526 cubic inch cylinders to pull out the win.
Chuck Peterson is one of the few Pro Mod drivers that involves his operation in extensive wintertime testing, and this thing was flying down at their little secret track in Texas. It's doing it again, buddy. 663. I almost feel sorry for poor Tommy Gray. Career best 666 He left on you, but you drove around and got him by 7/1000ths of a second to the finish line.
Pays to practice. Pays to practice. I tell you what, I can't say enough for these guys who've been working their tails off since Christmas. And I mean 7 days a week, and the crew has done a great job. We've got a lot of little problems to work out, but it's going to be a good year.
We move on to our next pair in the near lane. Fred Hahn returning to full-time competition in the IHRA. In the far lane, Ed Burnley in a 94 Chevy Camaro. Fred Hahn with another great hole shot, but something broke on the car. Ed Burnley gets a temporary reprieve with a 670, 205 miles per hour. Now on to our final pair in the near lane. Three-time runner-up in 1994, Chris Hunt. And in the far lane, Tommy Mooney. Tommy Mooney with the nostalgia car of former Pro Stock World Champion. Identical reaction time. Look at that car move on top end. A 659. Check that out, Scotty Cannon. 6-second run. You'd better be quick. Pro Modified final now. Pat Moore in the near lane. Tommy Mooney in the far lane. Moore has a big problem. He's been running 670s. Mooney's been running 650s. And it looks like Pat Moore with a nice hole shot of 445. Anybody's race. Tommy Mooney does it again. 658. 209 miles per hour.
We move on to the Pro Modified final. Number 1 qualifier against number 2. Scotty Cannon right there is number 1.
Well, this is the way the ladder is designed. Number 1 against number 2 in the finals to give you the best race of the day. Scotty Cannon, the supercharged 526 cubic inch Chevrolet powered 1940 Willys against Tommy Mooney's 706 cubic inch Pontiac.
Great lead. Give it to Mooney off the line, but he has big mechanical problems. Sparks everywhere. Cannon will win.
Scotty Cannon cranking off those 650, 652, 213. Look at the replay as you see Mooney coming off the pad. Something breaks on the car.
Hey, this is the one you needed. I mean, from a point standpoint, you needed to come back this hard.
I told my boys, I said, you know what would be a dream? I said, we need to go down and set both ends of the record. That'd be like going another round at Darlington. I said, and then we might win. He says, well, we done it.
That's all you needed. The Scotty story continues.
In the clean light of early spring, the 1995 IHRA season was a clean slate, with every car a championship contender. Through the summer, 10 weekends of head-to-head competition, the quick were separated from the not quite quick enough, and the title picture began to clear. For every winner who celebrated, there was a loser left alone with his thoughts. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. As the saying goes, a bad day racing is always better than a good day working. Still, there's something special in the air in the pits when world championships are on the line, and that's what we have for you today here at Thunder Valley. Today, we will officially crown all of our professional category champions for 1995. Some of those titles may be more easily won than others, but we expect some to go down to the very last race of the day. And either way, it's going to be great fun to watch. So winning championships is our theme. Now let's talk a little bit about what some people are going to have to do to accomplish that. Here's Ted Jones.
Bob, it's always exciting at the IHRA Fall Nationals, the final event where world championships are decided. In Pro Modified, Tommy Mooney has to win one round to win the world championship. If Pat Moore goes all the way to the finals and wins, he'll be the world champion.
Great tension. And you know, the ironic thing was the roles were reversed last year. Thomas had to sit and wait for Peyton to lose to see if he would win the title. We move on to Pro Modified. Our first matchup, Ed Burnley going up against Steve Johnson.
Both of them nitrous-injected 706 motors. Of course, the most popular car, Johnson's 57 Chevrolet, picks it up with a 677, 206 miles per hour.
Now, no championship at stake there, but bragging rights are on the line, and the Fall Nationals are the one event that every drag racer wants to win. Now, keep an eye on the guy in the near lane, Quayne Stott, the giant killer from Inman, South Carolina, going up against 200-mile-an-hour Bill Kuhlmann.
And it looks like Stott shut down with problems. Bill Kuhlmann with a 674, 203 miles per hour for the Summit Racing Equipment Corvette.
Once again, nothing at stake for Bill Kuhlmann, but he would desperately like to pick up a race victory here. Here's the problems for Quayne Stott, way sideways at the end of the launch pad. Now our next pair. Four-time champion Scotty Cannon in the Killer Red Demeter in the far lane. He will not defend this year. He's been officially eliminated, but now he goes up against Carl Moyer.
Carl Moyer, that Z38, the Chevrolet dealer from Ankeny, Iowa, is out on Scotty Cannon. Now he shuts down. Now Cannon comes around. Cannon with a 679, and it looks like Bob Moyer had a foul.
I thought he just left Cannon. That never happens. But in looking at the electronic timing and scoring, you bet, a big foul for Moyer. And now you are looking at the newly crowned world champion in Pro Modified. This was the first round effort for Tommy Mooney in the far lane.
If Mooney beats Ed Hoover back in first round competition, as you can see him doing handily, he won the world championship officially right there with a 669 at 208.
First man in history of IHRA to win 2 different professional class world championships.
I mean, that definitely means a lot, you know, and I think it'll be there for a while. You don't ever know. It could happen, you know, next year or whatever. I don't know what to say, Bill. I mean, I've thought about this 1,000 times, and, you know, if I got my first round, what I wanted to say, and I don't know what to say.
Okay, then let me ask you a question. There's a rumor going around that as of winning this world championship, you had decided that you weren't coming back next year to defend it.
That is definitely a rumor. I'm going to race harder next year than I've ever raced in my life.
That's all I need to hear.
Thanks.
And that's bad news for a lot of people. Tommy Mooney, with a redoubled effort, could be brutal. Here he is now, going up in second round action against Tim McAmis, the first Pro Modified world champion ever.
Tommy Mooney, 670, 209 miles per hour with an excellent 476 reaction time. That's why he's a world champion.
Last year, the Pro Modified world was shocked when Scotty Cannon, who had dominated the class for 4 consecutive years, had to end up settling for the number 2 position in that championship chase. What's he done about it? Well, for starters, a brand new car. How about an ultra swoopy 1963 Corvette, still using the blown 526 engine? Scotty plans to get back on top and regain that number 1 position.
Here's Brett Kepner with all of the news.
In the last year, the sport of drag racing has been rocked by a series of team car efforts which have produced impressive results, working with not one, but several drivers working for a common goal. Well, International Harvard Association Drag Racing has been no stranger to the team car concept. You might remember Roy Hill and Mike Bell with their 2-car punch in the World Championship Pro Stock standings last year, or for that matter, a few seasons ago when Scotty Cannon teamed with Pete Williams for a 2-car Pro Mod effort. For 1996, however, there are a couple that are going to stand out. Pro Modified will see the most 2-car action this year. Tommy Mooney, the reigning world champion in debuting a brand new 63 Corvette Stingray, has teamed with his old car and good friend Shannon Jenkins driving the 41 Willys that won the world title last year. Scotty Cannon announced his own 2-car team with match race veteran Hugh Scott at the wheel of the Willys that Cannon drove last year and Cannon himself at the wheel of a new Corvette. However, the biggest shock of this whole story came when Scotty Cannon simultaneously created his new 2-car team and then at the same Winternationals event vaporized it. He decided not to campaign a 2-car operation. We'll know what's going to happen this year with the 2-car team effort when we see each team line up 2 cars on the racetrack. Until then, however, it seems to be a straightforward approach at picking up points for at least 2 of those operations, with Scotty Cannon deciding maybe the best way is to just stick as Scotty Cannon.
Highlights now of the first round of Pro Modified. Former world champ Tim McAmis against reigning titleist in the right lane, Tommy Mooney.
You can see Mooney lost clearly, and Tim McAmis had some serious engine damage right there.
Look at all of that smoke. He can't see where he's going. Fortunately, he kept it off the rail, but he took it back to the pits. We'll have more on that in a moment. Now, this is 4-time world champion Scotty Cannon looking for some performance in his first round matchup with Louis Burris.
Scotty Cannon on a run with that brand new Corvette, a 655 Burris red light.
Meanwhile, back in Tim McAmis' pit, here's Brett.
It gives you an idea of how bad the damage really was in the opening round win over Tommy Mooney, and it was such a horrific upset. And now it's even more horrific because that was the last bullet you had.
Yeah, I think when we were talking on the other end, the motor we ran Friday and tested pulled a rod cap off and split the bottom of the motor open on it, but it contained itself in the engine diaper, and from the pieces that came out of this, it looked like it dropped a valve, busted the piston in half, and then both rods swung around and cleaned out the bottom of the motor and opened up the diaper, and that's where all the oil came from.
There isn't much left, in other words.
No, it like I said, it run over a lot of pieces down there, and because when it was, the belly pans under here are just aluminum, and they're all banged up from all the stuff coming out the back.
Comprehensive engine destruction for Tim McAmis as we move into the quarterfinals now. No, that is not Tommy Mooney in last year's car. It is last year's car, now in the hands of last year's crew chief, Shannon Jenkins.
And Shannon Jenkins, a teammate to Tommy Mooney, as the teams begin to form in IHRA competition. Qualified the car in the number 5 position. Now, his job is to win and act as a blocker. Pat Moore, who formerly drove for Larry Nance, is doing very well. Qualified number 4 with the same Camaro he drove last year.
He was number 3 in the world last year. Both cars, nitrous oxide, normally aspirated, and a foul start. Red light for Jenkins.
That means Pat Moore will roll on. You know, he could end up doing as well as Larry Nance, his former boss. Moore 664.
On to our next pair. Look at the wild paint job on Tommy Gray's 38 Chevy Coupe.
Watch the wild run by Tommy Gray. Hey, this car is storming. Tommy Gray, a 665, 207 miles per hour. Well, it's not the fridge, but it runs great.
Gray was supposed to have run Tim McCamus. Obviously, McCamus could not answer the call. And now we're going to have some questions answered. Everybody wants to know what Scotty Cannon has in store this year. You can bet this most competitive of racers absolutely hates running that number 2 on his window, Ted.
And this is one the crowd is split on. Lyman, South Carolina, Scotty Cannon. Quayne Stott, the low buck racer from Inman, South Carolina. You know what? I think they'd like to see Quayne win, although everybody wants Scotty back on top.
No doubt about it. Quayne Stott with that 88 Chevy Beretta, the normally aspirated power plant, nitrous oxide injection, Cannon going with the supercharged car on alcohol.
And look out, that car is on a pass. He's pulling 641, 217, unbelievable.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the man that just dropped the bomb. Dropped the bomb.
Well, I've been wondering what he run. I knew Quayne was going to be hell on the tree.
And he did leave on you.
Well, my hands hurt, and I was 600 while ago. So look, lean it, burn it, kick it, whatever. We got enough motors if we kill that motor every round to make it to the final.
Don't tell me about killing the motors, because this thing didn't have a wisp of smoke out of it.
Well, if it don't, it's on the crispy critter side, but we got more of them.
Did they tell you the whole numbers?
41.
217.28.
So did I my 214 earlier back that up?
Heck no, it's way too quick to be backed up.
We'll back it up a minute.
Doug Kirk, a former world champion. Let's move on now to the Pro Modified semifinals. Brad Jeter in the near lane going up against Tommy Mooney, who put him there. These two cars are almost identical. The hottest thing to hit Pro Mod 263 Corvette with 706 cubic inch nitrous injected Pontiac engine. And look how even they are at the 8th mile mark. Look how even that race was. A 674 for Brad Jeter to a losing but quicker Tommy Mooney's 673. You know, I think Tommy Mooney had this race won at half track, and then he got a little bit out of shape, a little hesitation on the throttle. Look at him bouncing around in the right lane. And that was all Brad Jeter needed to stick his fender out front.
Brad Jeter debuted this car at the beginning of the year, his sophomore year in Pro Modified Eliminator. It ran nothing but 650s everywhere. It ran real good here, too, number 6 qualifier, but you just proved something else. You're a driver, whole shot win, 674 to a 73 loser.
Well, Brad, I got to say, man, I got to thank Tommy Mooney a lot. If it wasn't for Tommy Mooney, I probably wouldn't be here. Tommy's helped me a bunch with his car, his clutch combination. I got to thank my crew, Blake Wiggins, my father, my whole family. I tell you what, this racetrack here has been good to me.
That was an interesting angle for you, too, because, like I said, the car was number 2, 3 qualifier almost everywhere we went so far this year. Now it's in a final round, which is better.
Oh, yeah, Brett, I've been struggling with this clutch combination, and I've struggled all day today. I got lucky and got by the second round. I guess the good Lord's looking out for me. I got to thank ESPN, the IHRA, and the good Lord.
One more to go, buddy.
Thank you.
What a victory it would be for Brad Jeter. Now, notice all the smoke coming from Steve Johnson's 57 Chevy Bel Air. That motor does not look right. And he's going up against the quickest and fastest car in the class, it's Scotty Cannon.
Steve Johnson turns on the red light, had nothing to lose, took a shot on the tree, and that's why. But look, smoke pouring out of Scotty Cannon's red Mater. He may be in trouble going into the final. A 668 ET, though.
Checking the replay, the red light flashes in Johnson's lane. Meanwhile, Scotty Cannon a little bit out of shape. Mechanical problems at the big end.
Emerging from the mist. I don't need to tell you what happened.
Kick the rods out, old Betsy.
She's dead.
We got 3 more. We ain't got one more round, so we should be all right.
Coming into final round qualifying on Saturday night, Jenkins in the right lane was not qualified for this race in which he hopes to win the World Championship. Shannon Jenkins did get in, though, and this man did not have the World Championship lock, Scotty Cannon. He was forced to stand by in the first round and see Jenkins get a gimme from his teammate Tommy Mooney, the defending world champion in Pro Modified. Good launches for both drivers, especially good for Shannon Jenkins, who ran out the string at 6:53 with a 207.85 miles an hour and advanced to the next round. Now, in contrast to Shannon Jenkins' problems getting into the field with that last-ditch qualifying effort, Scotty Cannon took advantage of those great conditions on Saturday night to do something very special.
Very, very special. First of all, another 100 points to make it even more difficult for Shannon Jenkins. He ran, are you ready? 6.40. Absolutely unheard of, but the air was perfect, and Scotty was too.
Now in the first round, up against Mike Janis from Lancaster, New York, Scotty Cannon needed to advance some rounds, and he did.
Remember, it's not a world record until he backs it up. He doesn't on this pass. 6:51, 213 does not back up that world record run.
Yeah, hey, need official with Hugh. Get out of here. They got to follow you down there. They can check you up there, your regular check. They're going to check anything else. Tell them to follow you if they want to see it.
What in the world's going on up there?
Well, Shannon Jenkins, he protested us on nitrous and fuel. Just makes it a good day. I'm ready now.
Well, as you can see, no love lost there. It's not only a psychological war, however, it's also a strategic one. Here's Brett Kepner with more.
Well, gentlemen, the Snap-on Tools World Finals may be an inaugural event, but we've been to Darlington in the past in the fall, and it has been a world record-setting racetrack. It was, again, in every conceivable respect. And keep in mind, with the World Championships on tap that we've got, everything is up for grabs. Pro Modified was the quickest field in history by 5 full hundredths of a second. And Scotty Cannon, of course, the man leading points, went 6.40 seconds, the quickest run in history to lead the field. But it's not just Cannon and his one-round advantage over Shannon Jenkins that's creating controversy. It's the other car, Hugh Scott. You might remember back at the Winternationals, Cannon announced a partnership with Hugh Scott, a two-car team this year to help him win the World Championship. He decided to dissolve that partnership before eliminations ever started at that first race. But he's brought him back in, as he said after the first round, as a hitman. Obviously, Hugh Scott's job is to do as much damage as possible in eliminations to Shannon Jenkins so that Cannon won't have to face that challenge if it goes all the way to the final round. But one thing's for sure. If Hugh Scott lines up in the second round with Shannon Jenkins, Hugh Scott's here on a mission. His mission, to give Scotty as much cushion as possible.
You got it, Brett. I don't know how they did it, but Hugh Scott will meet Shannon Jenkins later in this round. Here's Lewis Burris in that beautifully turned out red, white, and blue Chevy Corvette up against Dale Brinsfield.
Dale Brinsfield has come on strong at the end of the year, qualified number 4, but Lewis Burris strapped a light on Brinsfield, a 463 coupled with a 663 elapsed time, moves him into the semifinal round.
So the Captain America Corvette advances. Now to our next pair. Brad Jeter from Greenville, South Carolina in another Corvette against Billy Harper from Paducah, Kentucky.
Another strong runner. Jeter qualified number 2, picked up a win this year and 2 runner-up finishes. He has to be dealt with a 652. He's in the ball game.
In fact, Brad Jeter is 3rd in the points right now, but a forgotten man in this battle between Shannon Jenkins right there and Scotty Cannon, or in this case, Cannon's alter ego, evil twin if you like. Hugh Scott rolls in out of Red Bay, Alabama.
Hugh Scott, the hitman, incidentally, that is Scotty's old car repainted, and Scotty will be ready to run right behind Hugh Scott so he can see what happens here.
Girlfriend Amanda with final words, but I tell you what, Scotty Cannon is one racer you do not need to pump up. Maybe she's trying to get him to calm down. Anyway, this race will mean an awful lot to Scotty Cannon. They are away, and almost identical reaction times, 1/1000th of a second apart.
Wow, what a race this is. Shannon Jenkins pulls it out of 660, listen to this, to a losing 661. Scott almost did his job and knocked Shannon out.
How'd you like to be the guy who had to go over to Scotty Cannon, lean in and say, well, Scotty, he was gone. Scotty rolling in. Let's take another look. Great side-by-side drag race.
We have to look at that. Don't sell Hugh Scott short. He qualified number 3, motorsports fans. Better than Shannon Jenkins. Remember, he barely got into this thing. Let's go down to top end for more with Brett Kepner on this absolutely incredible photo finish.
That was one of the single most intense drag races of the year. If only people knew how much intensity was up there.
Oh, man. I don't know if I can get through today.
660 to 661. It was 12 thousandths at the finish line, but you got past the second most important hurdle of this whole thing.
Oh, that's true very much, but we hurt the motor. We got to keep thinking.
You got more.
Oh, yeah, we got one. Thank you.
Well, it better be a good one. They need a silver bullet when you're up against the killer Red Mater. Now all the pressure shifts to this man, Scotty Cannon. There you see him in his office as the crew makes final preparations, and he's going up against the number 5 guy in points, Carl Moyer. No pushover, Ted.
No, Carl Moyer, the Chevrolet dealer from Acme, Iowa, could very easily defeat Scotty. He had a runner-up finish at Budds Creek, Maryland earlier this year, so he knows how to go down to the finals. Qualified number 8 at this event. Has that famous Z38, as he calls it, 1938 Chevrolet over there in the far lane.
Supercharged machine for Scotty Cannon. Nitrous boosted, normally aspirated mill for Carl Moyer.
And Moyer puts a gate job on Scotty Cannon. A 4:67 reaction time. Cannon could be in trouble. Does he have a 40 in it? Yeah, Scotty Cannon's crew celebrates because look at the ET. 6:48 for Scotty Cannon. Statement said.
All right, thank you, Brett. To the semifinals of Pro Modified we go. There is Scotty Cannon, who knows what he has to do. Win his world championship right now. If he does, it will be his 5th. Meanwhile, over on the starting line, this is Brad Jeter in the far lane against Shannon Jenkins. You know Scotty is going to want to know the results of this battle right away.
Oh, Shannon Jenkins, a 4:25 reaction time. It's just about over right there. Here comes Brad Jeter right beside him as the engine goes away. Jeter a 6:52. Jenkins won it off the starting line, a 6:57. What an incredible driving job for Shannon Jenkins under pressure.
And now Scotty Cannon pulls into the lanes. Jenkins has left him no margin. He must go and win this race. First, let's take another look.
Shannon Jenkins, without question, had the adrenaline pumping. A 4:25 reaction time to Brad Jeter's slower 4:80. He didn't know Brad Jeter had a 6:52 in that car. Good thing he was wired into that tree, though, Bob.
And by the narrowest of margins, Shannon Jenkins keeps his championship hopes alive. Look how close it was at the finish. Brett Kepner is down at Big End to talk with him. Brett?
Ladies and gentlemen, it goes to the final. If he wins, obviously. But, man, I can't believe you pulled this off. You whole shot him. 4:25 reaction time.
Well, every now and then you get lucky, you know.
0.05 of a second at the finish line.
What was ET?
57 to his losing 52.
Gee, that's what it's all about. Somebody looking after me.
Well, like I said, we'll see what happens here. If he wins, you know, it's all coming down to this. It's incredible. It all comes down to one run.
We kind of figured it, so that's why we're going to play it.
See what happens.
And so once again, all the pressure shifts to the driver of this car, the killer Eliminator. Shannon Jenkins and crew will look on with a certain vested interest. And now what's this? Captain America is out of the fight. Louis Burris has a problem. Scotty Cannon will make a solo pass.
Scotty Cannon picks up the points for this round and will move into the final and does it in style. 6:44, 215 miles per hour. And is that crew jubilant or what? I love
Gee, I think Scotty's excited about this.
That's the most excited we've seen Scotty all season. Meanwhile, a dejected Louis Burris, Captain America, pushing back. Let's go for a ride inside Scotty Cannon's 1963 Corvette on a 6:44 pass.
Is that it?
That did back up the record. 6:44.
I love it. Come to the wire, baby. I love it. I love you, fan. This is for my little boy, Destin. Brand new. Look here. First time he's rode with me. Ain't done bad since. My boy. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to check something. I got my little cheat sheet here. With 100 extra points for the record.
I could lose next round, but I won championship. 700, 200, right?
Well, I'm looking here. It looks like if you lose in the final with an extra 100 points.
By 50 points.
Yes, I think so.
1 point's good as a million.
I think he is world champion.
He is, in fact, the world champion.
And there, Ted, I almost said it. I almost said that was Scotty Cannon when you saw that flame job on a Corvette. Meet Scotty Cannon's new teammate, Brad Jeter, going up against Todd Tutterow.
And Jeter pushes it too hard. pumps on the big red line. Now watch him, though, completely out of shape, almost crosses the center line, and all for nothing as Totoro picks up the win with a 7:07, 142 miles per hour. You know, this Cannon team is serious this year. As we take one more look at this thing, Bob, you can see he was completely out of shape. Does he know he red-lighted is the question.
I don't think so, Ted. Looks like he kept his foot in it. Now here comes the boss man wearing the number 1. He's held it for 5 years, unprecedented in IHRA history. This is Scotty Cannon. His teammate runs a 706 cubic inch Pontiac on nitrous. The boss has a supercharged 526 Chevy. He's racing Chris Hunt.
This is a brand new entry for the Hunt family. They had the 38 Olds last year. They've gone to the old trusty shoebox, a 55 Chevrolet for Hunt. Meanwhile, Scotty shows him what he can do with his 55 Chevy as he punches that aerodynamic 63 split window coupe through the air to a 651.
Now here come Michael Martin and Roy Wasco.
Michael Martin, glad to see him back in the top ranks of Pro Modified. He hasn't done much since '92 when he picked up 2 IHRA National Event victories. Looks like he may be doing it again with a 652, 213 miles per hour.
Final pair in Pro Mod, Shannon Jenkins. Number 2 on the window. He took Scotty Cannon all the way to the last event of the year here at Darlington last year. He's going up against Dale Brinsfield.
Dale Brinsfield, whose grandfather was the sponsor, incidentally, of the original Sox and Martin Mercury Comet. So he has a great racing tradition behind him with that Mark Pro sponsored Corvette.
There are nostalgia body cars, 41 Willys for Jenkins, 63 Corvette for Brinsfield, and Jenkins takes it.
Brinsfield with a great 494 hole shot, but Jenkins ET'd him with that 651.
Here's Brett Kepner with all the news in drag racing. Call it Drag Review.
Like any other season opener at Darlington, the big news at this drag race is either the numbers or the new cars. This year it was both, but without a doubt, the overshadowing factor was the incredible performance the cars exhibited in virtually every pro category, with conditions that we could easily find anywhere in the middle of the summer, which included high temperatures, almost 90 degrees, records in the area. We still saw the quickest Pro Modified Eliminator field of all time. It took a lot of 6.59 seconds just to qualify for the 16-car field. In fact, there were 32 cars under 6.8 seconds at this drag race. Some 50 machines tried to qualify, but the biggest news was who was on top. It wasn't Scotty Cannon. The number 1 qualifier, Todd Totoro of North Carolina, whose brand new 63 Corvette Stingray unloaded a 6.44 second blast at over 214 miles per hour. The number 2 spot was just as incredible, keeping in mind that nobody other than Scotty Cannon had ever run under 6.5 seconds before. Mike Castellana, the driver of the Awesome Trucking Company 63 Corvette from New York, ran 6.46 seconds at 216 miles per hour right out of the trailer. Now, the fact that there were carbureted cars through the top 4 spots and that Cannon wouldn't be found until number 5 indicates that, yes, the field has caught up to Scotty. Whether or not that means that he won't be winning this year remains to be seen. Cannon's going to have to be on his toes in 97 every single step of the way.
This is the first event of the year. You're the points leader.
Not exactly the same enthusiasm shown by the other 2 winners.
Now we can move to the Pro Modified Finals. Scotty Cannon with 5 World Championships. Look at all those final round appearances going up against Shannon Jenkins. But on paper, Jenkins has been the superior combination thus far this weekend. Let's see what happens here.
Never count Scotty out, I'll tell you. He's plenty tough. Watch him off the starting line. Quick reflexes under pressure.
And these guys, perhaps more than any other pair we've seen thus far, actually do the work on their cars. They're virtually their own crew chiefs.
And no love lost between them, I can tell you. They're not the best of friends. Staging very carefully. Listen to the RPMs for Scotty's motor. Waiting on Shannon to stage. Finally, Shannon stages. Shannon Jenkins drops a gate job on Scotty Cannon. 4:42 reaction time, wire to wire. Give it to Shannon Jenkins. 6:51. Not only beat him off the line, he beat him too.
Talk about consistency. In 4 passes down this quarter mile, Shannon Jenkins has run 6.513 twice, 6.510 twice, including this championship-winning run.
6th victory for Shannon.
That anybody can run 6.51 seconds 4 times in a row. It ran it again.
I don't know.
51-3, 51-3, 51-0, 51-0.
That's all she'll run, I guess. We just got the best out of her today. It's done a good job. The car's been real consistent. Guys done a super job on the clutch, all the crew. I mean, I can't say much. These guys worked their tail off. They deserve this.
Before we get to Pro Modified, here's Brett Kepner with this edition of Drag Review.
Gentlemen, obviously drag review is about what's new, right? Well, because of the tremendous glut of new cars being built at chassis companies all around the country during the winter months, it has made this 33rd Annual Spring Nationals one of a tremendous number of season debuts for cars midway through the year. A plethora of new Pro Modifieds showed up at this event, accounting for a bunch of the 52 entries for 16 cars. It's the largest Pro Mod field in history, and it included Ed Hoover and the Trussell Brothers team out of South Carolina, Dan Bandish in the modern-day Outlaw 1963 version of the Stingray from Melbourne, Florida. And switching away from a 63 Corvette body style, surprisingly, was the one and only Scotty Cannon. His new onset magazine machine is once again a 1941 Willys body style. Still retains its same sponsorship, but the big trick here is under the hood. No more supercharged power plants for Cannon, at least in the hot summer months. He's gone back to a nitrous injected engine. But absolutely, hands down, the most spectacular debut came from Johnny Rocca. Take a look at the brand new Iron Horse 1949 Mercury Lowrider. This thing is everything that a custom car should be and more, including teardrop spotlights, 55 Lincoln taillights, fender skirts, white walls, moon disc hubcaps, and oh, by the way, in match race competition before this event, it ran 6.51 seconds at over 214 miles an hour. That's this edition of Drag Review.
Our first pair, Todd Tutterow from Louisville, North Carolina, and Ed Hoover, the veteran campaigner out of Gilbert, South Carolina.
The number 9 and 16 qualifiers. Tutterow coming out of the old junior pro stock ranks, but look at him run now. A 419 reaction, by the way, 400 being perfect, 657, 212 miles per hour for the vet.
Back on the drag strip, our next pair in Pro Modified, Wally Stroop and Ed Burnley, a pair of 700 cubic inch Pontiac Mills under 1963 Corvette bodywork.
Stroop qualified number 3, came in from the Super Chevy circuit and is starting to really make noise here with the IHRA 658. He's in the semifinals at 212 miles per hour.
Boy, that Corvette bodywork is so popular. Of our 8 quarterfinalists, 7 of them are using it. Here's the one man who's not. This is Scotty Cannon, the 5-time world champion, and his all-new Willys with that nitrous-boosted, normally aspirated engine that Brett mentioned. In fact, nowhere in our 16-car field did we see a single supercharged engine.
But look who he's running. Tommy Mooney, the former world champ. Guess who his crew chief is this weekend? Shannon Jenkins. Guess who just won? Tommy Mooney.
On to the Pro Modified final. Ricky Smith looking for his first after 30 victories in Pro Stock competition on the IHRA trail. Keep in mind, he said he was going to take some clutch out of the car. We'll see if it works. There's the man he's up against. The distinctive colors of Tommy Mooney from Shelby, North Carolina, returning to the series after winning the World Championship in 1995. Almost identical cars in displacement and bodywork.
Don't forget, Tommy Mooney also won a Pro Stock World Championship a number of years prior to winning that Pro Mod Championship. Both guys very experienced. Off the starting line, it's going to be Ricky Smith with a 4:31 reaction time. Tricky Ricky pulls it out. He's back in the winner's circle, and he sets a new track record doing it. 6:49, 215 miles per hour. Let's pick him up at the 8th mile mark right now, and that's where Ricky begins to make all the horsepower. Did he set up the clutch right? Apparently so. Here's Brett.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tricky Ricky is back. Now, I'm interested to know, did the radio work?
Yeah, but he was about to cry so bad, I don't believe he could tell me what I run somebody.
Him cry.
I should cry, too.
This will break you up, buddy. 6:49 at 215 miles an hour. Numbers we only barely saw at Darlington, that on the mountain.
Brett, I knew if it ever got down a racetrack, it'd run. I kept taking clutch out of it all day, and gosh, I just don't know what to say. I mean, I'm just so proud of, Larry Tutterow helping me and staying with me for years. Carolina Driller, Don Gray, Pete Williams. Hey, it takes a lot to do this. I know y'all know that, but you just don't know how much I appreciate these guys helping me.
How many more
I'm
classes?
just so glad that IHRA is getting this thing back on. They've had good crowds. Man, I'm tickled to death to be back on you, buddy.
Track record, speed and ET, low ET of the meet, top speed of the meet, the win, and the third different eliminator category you have won.
Just supposed to be a washed-up driver. I'm doing pretty good.
Ed Hoover from Gilbert, South Carolina, and Mike Castellana from Westbury, New York.
You know, Ed Hoover won the first ever IHRA Pro Modified drag race. Also stopped Randy Moore in the quarterfinal round. Randy Moore, the son of the founder of the International Hot Rod Association, former Senator Carl Moore.
Here's a look at Ed Hoover's car, 63 Corvette. Both cars 706 cubic inches, a Chevy for Hoover, Pontiac for Castellana. It's an all nitrous matchup on this half of the draw.
Ed Hoover ran a 654 in the most previous round. Castellana ran a 656, so this is anybody's drag race. The number 5 and 8 qualifiers meeting here. Lock in the starting line advantage to Ed Hoover, the South Carolina-based 63 split window coupe. Looks like he has it. It'll be Ed Hoover, identical ETs. 651 with a 7 to a 651 with a 1. That whole shot advantage gave Hoover the win.
And now here comes the battle of the superchargers as Jim Oddie tells his driver, Fred Hahn, wind that puppy up. And now here comes the killer red mater of Scotty Cannon, the 5-time Pro Modified World Champ.
This is the number 2 and 3 qualifiers. As we said earlier in the show, these guys did battle in the early days of Pro Modified. Believe me, fans, before it's over with this year, it's gonna get good between Freddie Hahn and Scotty Cannon. It's a natural rivalry.
Boy, watch Scotty Cannon closely. He almost didn't make the round. There was some kind of problem in the staging lanes. They had parts flying everywhere, but here he is, ready to go.
Can he possibly be ready? Can he be prepared? Having to throw the car together like, oh, what a hole shot for Freddie Hahn. A 4:32 reaction time, but now here comes Cannon. Scotty Cannon pulls it out. The crew can't believe it. He ET'd him. 6:52. Hahn slowed to a 6:61. I don't believe it.
I guess they must have been shoehorning more secret stuff into that engine compartment. And so our matchup in the finals will be Nitrous versus Supercharged. Ed Hoover, the number 5 qualifier, against number 3, Scotty Cannon.
Why is Scotty Cannon one of the most popular drivers in IHRA drag racing? Because of stunts like that. You weren't even going to be in that race. They said that you couldn't make it.
I told us, fired in the pits, let's go. Hey, it's for my crew, Eagle, everybody.
What happened? What happened up there?
We got to crank it, my boy stripping the blower, and put the rotors in backwards, and we had 3 minutes to go, and we changed blowers in less than 3 minutes, put it back on, and the throttle cable wasn't even hooked up when Jim was doing his burnout. They was hooking all this stuff up as we was going.
You know,
my crew's it, I'm telling you.
You told us that you couldn't run a 40. You didn't need to. Hole shot, 52 to a losing 51.
Oh, I'm telling you, that's my crew. It's my crew, Hitchcock and everybody. That's all I can say, man. I got to.
Welcome back to the late afternoon at Budds Creek, Maryland. Bob Varsha and Ted Jones with you for the IHRA President's Cup Nationals. There is Wally Stroop's Corvette out of Kingsmouth, North Carolina, ready for his Pro Modified semifinal hookup with the number 2 man in points, Ed Hoover from Gilbert, South Carolina.
Both of these drivers running the low 650 area. Stroop with a 653, Hoover with a 657 in the most previous round. As a matter of fact, Cannon's been running 650s. This is a very balanced field. Starting line advantage, Wally Stroop. Winner, Wally Stroop. 654 like a bracket car, 214.
In only 6 months, this guy has come back from a fire that, as I said before, was one of the worst in IHRA history. Your hand's still bandaged. You spent a lot of time personally even wondering if you were going to be back, and geez, now you're back in a final.
Yeah, I tell you, it's been a long time coming, Brett. After March, I didn't know if I'd ever get back in the car again, and to make it to the finals here, boy, it's the Lord's blessing, I swear.
It's an amazing comeback because people forget, you build your own car. You put this thing together with your own hands.
Right. We were out of work 3 months. The guys in the shop kept everything going. I got to give them credit. They kept us in business. I'd like to thank Trim Parts, my folks. I mean, they hung in there with us.
All those people that stuck by you, whoever wanted, was for you to do your job.
Well, I'm trying. We can just do it one more time.
And now we move to an interesting matchup of the 2 main proponents of their respective setups in this ongoing engine controversy in Pro Modified. In the foreground, Tommy Mooney with his nitrous injected big cubic inch motor. And in the far lane, the only supercharged car on alcohol to make the field. That new 100 pounds added to the supercharged cars
took out everybody but this man, Scotty Cannon.
Well, this is the number 2 and the number 3 qualifiers, and with that 100 pounds they put on Scotty, they have got it pretty well equal. Scotty Cannon has run a 6:52, a 6:51 to get thus far in eliminations. He qualified number 2, not number 1. Shannon Jenkins was a number 1 qualifier, so it's pretty well equal. Either guy could win this thing right here, right now.
Boy, earlier we heard Bill Bader say he wanted to put about a 10th on the supercharged cars. He may have done it with Scotty, but with Scotty you never know. He never shows his hand until he needs to, and this is taking a while, Ted.
A long time to stage, Bob. I was just going to comment. Finally they staged. Hey, it didn't shake Scotty. 4:55 reaction time. It's all over, folks. Mooney had to lift Scotty Cannon. 6:48, 217 miles per hour. He still doesn't have the field covered.
Did you plan a burn down? In other words, were you fully prepared to have one when you went up there, or did it just start when you got in the beams?
I don't ever plan nothing. I race everybody clean as I can. I don't mind going in first, but if you just come on, that's out of respect to every driver. These clowns learning not to go in and stuff, I can sit up there as long as you want to. They don't know nothing about alcohol, undoubtedly.
Pro Modified pit area to bring you an interesting and very touching story. You know, one of the most popular television series in the history of television has to be Mayberry RFD. Andy and the whole gang, and if there were such a thing as a professional drag racer who lived in Mayberry, his name surely would have been Quayne Stott.
Enjoying a most successful year on the IHRA trail. Here we see Quayne beating perennial favorite Freddie Hahn at Rockingham. But it wasn't always that way. Quayne started with humble beginnings in Pro Modified. To learn more, we went back to his hometown of Inman, South Carolina, to meet with his family and ask his mother about his early interest in cars.
Well, I guess his first cars was the little Matchbox cars. And they, of course, would race them. And he kept working on one until he got it to where it would travel faster than any of the others. So, can't hardly talk about this without tears. But anyway, he really did. He worked with the rear end part, and he got it to where it would roll faster, you know. And so that was my first thing I can remember of him messing with cars and speed.
Quayne had encouragement in those early days from his father, Bobby, who actually let him start driving before he was of legal age.
Well, he was 15, Ray. He wasn't hardly 15. I had a good friend at the highway department. I wanted him to drive, which his mama, you know, always was against that. But we went ahead and got his driving license, and he drove, which was illegal, but he drove, and there wasn't nothing to do about it because he had his license. I knew he'd be a racer. I never did tell it, but I knew he would. So that's all he'd ever want to do was race little cars, go-karts. Got him a go-kart, I bought him an old Olin, made him fix it up himself and where it would go faster. You know, learning stuff as he went.
The family involvement continued. You see, Quayne's uncle Larry, an IHRA Superstock racer, actually taught Quayne how to drag race.
He worked with me all through high school, and he got a 67 Camaro and got it fixed up and wanted to go to the drag strip. So he didn't even know how to get to the drag strip. So I went with him, and I was running at the same time, and I helped him and told him how to get on the starting line and what light to leave on, and he just kind of took it from there.
The whole family was behind Quayne, except for Mom, who sat at home and worried about what was going to happen to him at the next event.
You know, Mom, she never did like his racing too good, but now I think I'm 38 years old, so I think she's just done decided we ain't gonna quit, so she might as well, you can't beat them, join them.
So you think maybe it might turn into your good luck charm?
Oh, yeah, Mama, I mean, she's been to some races before, and there for a while she thought she's bad luck because we'd get beat first round. Well, this one, I told her this was going to be the one that changed all that.
Well, I think Mom has finally accepted the racing Stott brothers and the risks that go along with drag racing. She's here giving it her support and packing the parachute to make sure he can get it stopped.
Let's go back to round number 1 of Pro Modified, where Mitch Stott, Quayne's brother, a relatively newcomer to the Pro Modified ranks, ran against Steve Vick. And you talk about Mom having her heart in her throat. Take a look at that action, Aaron Palmer.
You can see right away it started to drift to the left. It almost tagged the guardrail, and it did on the other side, but here comes Quain.
No damage done. Now we move up to quarterfinals where Quain Stott will be facing Al Billis, the #1 qualifier from Canada.
The #1 qualifier and the world record holder. Oh, you saw a severe tire shake out of Billis at about 500 feet. Quain Stott will advance to the semifinal round with an excellent 6:51.
He is very much in this drag race. Our next pair will be a very colorful car. This is the professional undertaker, not just the car. This guy actually has a funeral parlor. Here is Tommy Gray taking on Glenn May.
Glenn May out of British Columbia. It's 100% Ford. It's supercharged, and right now he has got the undertaker in his sights. He'll get it done. Cranberries on the house for Glenn May. Unfortunately, excellent 6:51.
So Tommy Gray's quicker, but losing 6:47. Talk about a hole shot. Here's a guy that can drive and won a race on hole shots. This is Shannon Jenkins from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. His 41 Willys qualified #2 for this event.
This will be a great race. You've got Ricky Smith on the other side. Ricky Smith, the #17 qualifier. He wasn't even supposed to be here today. He went to Rockingham last night and tested, and right now he got in as an alternate. And right now he's up against the best. Oh, Ted, great drag race at half track. At the top end, oh, you can see something going wrong with Shannon Jenkins right through the lights. Ricky Smith with a 6:51 will advance.
Not surprising. That's why they call him Tricky Ricky. 5 world championship in pro stock. But here comes the heavy. He qualified #6, but folks, don't count him out. This is Freddie Hahn in Jim Oddy's 1954 Corvette. He'll be taking on Steve Vick.
Actually, Fred Hahn's feeling a lot of confidence right now because they've had some match races. They've won 6 in a row. They're going to win this one, too. Oh, Ted, look at the number. 640, 219 for Fred Hahn.
Well, we're going to see a lot of blower and nitrous matchups today. Fred Hahn up against Shannon Jenkins. There's one right there. Al Billis and Dale Brinsfield to go up against each other. Troy Critchley and Tommy Gray, another blower versus nitrous matchup.
All right, here's our first one. Carl Spearing in the new ECW car. Don't forget, you can see ECW on TNNs on Friday nights. Up against the 57 Chevy of Pat Moore. Off the line, Moore gets the jump. Now, what do they do at the far end? Look at this. Spearing with the chokehold. He gets the win, 6:55. Al Pittman going up against Quain Stott. Stott, the Corvette on the right side of your screen, gets the jump. Pittman's coming after him, Tommy.
Boy, you can hear that blower coming, but it's not enough as Quain Stott gets the win at 6:43. So it's 1-1.
Now, Troy Critchley in the Iron Horse up against the Undertaker, Tommy Gray.
Boy, Critchley struggled this year so far. Let's see if he can get it together north of the border in Canada.
Gray gets the jump. Critchley gets the win.
Blower horsepower took over on the top end.
How that big sled moves at 223 miles an hour, I'll never know. Shannon Jenkins, our first look at the Viper up against the Corvette of the points leader, Fred Hahn.
Once again, another blower versus nitrous motor. And it's, boy, both cars moving around, getting all over the place. But Hahn, 6:29, outstanding run for as much problems as he has.
Now the Vipe gets snake bit. Ronnie Hood and Carl Spearing go on to the next round.
It's pretty even so far. We've had nitrous, we've had blower cars win. Look at the car moving around, fighting it all the way, staying with it. Wow, that is impressive to take a win after moving around your lane that bad.
Chokehold in the first round, off the top rope in the second round. Now Fred Hahn, the points leader, at it again in the next round.
Oh, and a foul start there for Wasco. They left way too early. Knew when he had to take a chance against Hahn running those kind of numbers. 6:32, another outstanding run.
Well, he had to take a shot at him. Critchley in the left lane, Quain Stott down the right lane.
Boy, Quain Stott with a big hole shot on Critchley, but we'll see if he can hold him off, because here comes the big blue machine.
Oh, my. Critchley does it again. Wow, they got that machine working well today. Al Billis and Steve Costas. Billis is in that big bright yellow with the purple flames.
No advantage really for either one on the start line. Let's see who can keep it straight. And it's Al Billis taking the win, 6:43. So the blower cars are getting the advantage, it seems like, Ralph.
Al Al Billis and his supercharged Studebaker are keeping race fans revved north of the border.
Yeah, I just love it. You know, everyone's got to have someone to root for, and the fans come out here and they're rooting for you. And yeah, there are more here than I'd say any other race. You know, that's wonderful.
But it's not just the fans feeling Billis's passion for Pro Mod.
I'm a tinkerer, and I love changing, modifying things. It's not as much a drive down the racetrack as to see how well our changes perform on the racetrack and make sure that I can do as good a job driving the car.
The son of Canadian Motorsport Hall of Famer Dave Billis, it's almost as if Al was bred to be behind the wheel.
Well, my father, he's been involved in racing his whole life, but it's been Indy cars, stock cars, all forms of old track racing. And no, drag racing is just, I don't know why I generated the interest for it. I think it's just the fact I don't like fixing body panels, maybe, I don't know, but yeah.
And Al Billis loves the idea of more and more races in Canada.
Stock cars and the other forms of racing have got a lot of coverage, and it's because they're very organized. And this organization, the momentum it has, moving into Canada, it's wonderful, and everyone is excited. So that's great. Let's carry on. Keep
the 49 Merc. Roke has finally got his car into the semis, and Carl Spearing in the far lane.
Boy, they leave both of them pretty late on the line there, Ralph, and we'll just have to see who can pull it on the other end. It's Critchley pulling out the win.
Boy, there's Roke jumping up and down, doing the dance, and the 49 Merc marches on. Points leader Fred Hahn trying to stay atop the points. He's got to go up against Canadian Al Billis.
Boy, I don't know if Al Billis is on home territory here, but Freddie Hahn has been awfully tough all season long. Hahn with a good starting line advantage. Look at that car moving around, fighting at every run, and still pulls out a run of a 6:32. Has got the field covered.
Troy, after an abysmal first couple of races, you finally got it all back together. How about you as a driver? Are you confident going into this final round?
Oh, mate, I'm not confident going into any race, you know. I go there, we try and do our best, you know. We got Johnny and Darren, like, tuning this baby up. I'm just trying to get it to the other end. Like, I'm not perfect out there. I got lots of work on still, but we've been lucky enough to be able to drive around them today.
Are you going to try and step it up for the final round? I mean, you know who you've got, and you got the car that went, you know, a 617. You did it all. Are you going to try and just put everything you can into the car, or just run your number and run your race?
You always got to run your own race, yeah. And well, the boys will be tuning it up for sure, because Johnny wants this probably worse than I do. He's been doing it a long time. The Iron Horse is going all right. Hopefully he'll stay together. You know, Freddie's a tough competitor. He's one of my heroes, mate. I used to read about him when I was this big. You know, he calls me son, you know.
You got a very strong competitor here in the final that really struggled all year, but they are back on their game and really within probably a couple of hundredths of the Summit car right now. Do you change your game plan at all?
No. If we can run the same number that we've been kind of running all day, I really think that'll win the race if I'm on my game on the tree. You know, these guys are working real hard today to keep this thing running this consistently with this changing air conditions and the changing track conditions and we're actually pretty pleased the way it's running here. We're trying to take it one round at a time, and we may have to step up just a tad for this round if we can.
From Modified Finals, the 49 Merc of Critchley in the left lane and the 54 Corvette of Fred Hahn in the near lane.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if Freddie Hahn can keep that car straight and what it will actually run if he can. Definitely had the nice straight run, 6:22, one of the quicker runs in pro modified history right there.
That'll make that 6:17 stick. That is the fastest door slammer on the planet. Freddie Hahn has put him away.
This is a good game for Team Summit.
Well, Fred Hahn, you're going to have to get a bigger mantle at home because here's your second one in a row from John Baumgartner. What a ride.
This is great, ain't it? What do we run that run?
6:22.
And it backed up the record.
I believe that's correct.
That's what we were trying to do, is save it for the last run. For Summit, I mean, Jim Oddie, Tommy Anderson, they've tuned this car all weekend. They've made the right calls, the right changes. They tell me what this car is going to run before I get in it. I don't know how they do that, but I'm telling you, my hat's off to them two guys. They're just great.
Jim Oddie told you it was going to run at 22.
They told me, Tommy Anderson told me the car will go out there, run at 23 and back up the record this pass.